Hello and welcome to Durante's House of Music, where I, Tom Durante, the maestro, am your guide to all things musical. From keyboard instrument repair to music theory, music history, music production, AI music, and everything in between. I hope you're having a great day. I hope you had a great day. I hope you're going to have a great evening, and I hope that this show will be a part of it. Today, I wanted to remake some theory lessons that I looked at on my very early lives. So here we go, let's get into it. My very favorite website to teach theory with is musictheory.net. This spot is not sponsored, although I did reach out a long time ago. Alright, so you can see here they have lessons, they have exercises, they have tools, they have apps that you can buy if you want this content offline. But you can use it for free right here on any web browser, on your phone, on your computer, on anything. So here we go. We're going to go over the basics. All right, so we've got staff, clefs, and ledger lines, note duration, measures and time signatures, rest duration, dots and ties, and steps and accidentals. So let's get into it. The staff is the foundation upon which notes are drawn. The modern staff comprises 5 lines and 4 spaces. Every line or space on the staff represents a white key on the keyboard. Clefs assign individual notes to certain lines or spaces. 2 clefs are normally used, the treble and the bass clef. First, we will discuss the treble clef, also called the G clef. The staff line which the clef wraps around, shown in red, you see how it makes this circle here, is known as G. Any note placed on this line becomes G. Let's listen. The note on the space above G is A. Remember, there is not an H note. The note on the line above A is B. This process continues all the way up, but we just ran out of room to place notes. What happens now? Ledger lines will solve the dilemma. A ledger line is a small line that extends the staff when we run out of room. With the ledger line drawn, we can place the A. Next, let's discuss the bass clef, also called the F clef. The staff line in between the 2 dots of the clef is F. You can see the red line here. Let's listen. We can now fill the rest of the staff with notes. Finally, we will discuss the grand staff, a theoretical staff consisting of 11 lines. Watch what happens when we eliminate the middle line. We end up with 2 regular staffs. By adding a treble clef to the top staff and a bass clef to the bottom staff, we can see the relationship between the 2 staves. That should be staves. Typo. Notice how the 2 clefs are joined by the C, shown in red. That would be middle C. This is commonly called middle C, since it corresponds to the middle staff line on the grand staff. That's it for staff, clef, and ledger lines. Let's go back, and we'll start note duration. The length of time that a note is played is called its note duration, which is determined by the type of note. The whole note has the longest duration in modern music. The half note has half the duration of a whole note. 2 half notes occupy the same amount of time as 1 whole note. Quarter note is a fourth or a quarter of 1 whole note. 4 quarter notes occupy the same amount of time as 1 whole note. 2 quarter notes equal the duration of a half note. Notes smaller in duration than a quarter note have flags. Each flag halves the value of a note, therefore cutting it in half. An eighth note has 1 flag. Therefore, 2 eighth notes occupy the same amount of time as 1 quarter note. A 16th note has 2 flags, halving the value again. 2 16th notes equal the duration of an eighth note, shown in red. 4 16th notes occupy the same amount of time as 1 quarter note. Although it is possible to have notes with 3 or more flags, they are seldom used, depending on the time signature. This chart displays the relationship of all 5 note types discussed in this lesson. Alright, let's go back. Measures and time signatures. Vertical black bars called bar lines divide the staff into measures. This staff has been split into 2 measures. Time signatures define the amount and type of notes that each measure contains. The first measure is in 4/4 time, and the second is in 3/4 time. The first measure, 4/4, contains 4 quarter notes. The second measure, 3/4, contains 3 quarter notes. Next, we will discuss non-quarter note time signatures. 6/8 time contains 6 eighth notes. 3/2 time contains 3 half notes. This chart displays all of the time signatures that we discussed. Alright, rest duration. Rests represent periods of silence in a measure. Each type of rest shares a duration with a certain type of note. You can see them here. For example, both a quarter rest and a quarter note occupy the same amount of time. That's 1 beat in 4/4 time. While the note would make a sound, the rest is silent. To demonstrate this, let's fill a measure of 4/4 time with 4 quarter notes. When played, all 4 quarter notes sound. Next, we will replace the second quarter note with a quarter rest. When played, the second beat is now silent. Next, let's discuss other types of rests. Whole rest occupies the same amount of time as a whole note. It is drawn as a box descending from the 4th staff line. A half rest occupies the same amount of time as a half note. It is drawn as a box ascending from the middle staff line. Like notes, rests can have flags. With 1 flag, an 8th rest has the same duration as an 8th note. With 2 flags, a 16th rest has the same duration as a 16th note. Although rarer, rests can have multiple flags. Use this chart for reference for rest duration. Now, dots and ties. Augmentation dots and tenuto ties are 2 types of markings used to alter a note's duration. A dot increases duration by 1/2 of the note's value. Since an 8th note is half the duration of a quarter note, we will substitute for the half symbol. As you can see, a dotted quarter note is equal to a quarter note plus an 8th note. A dotted quarter note can also equal 3/8 notes. Ties merge multiple notes of the same pitch. They are used to let the duration of a note travel across barriers, such as the measure line in this example. The 4th and 5th notes are now combined. If the measure line were not there, we could have written a half note instead. Use this chart for reference to augmentation dots. Alright, one more, steps and accidentals. A half step or semitone is the distance from one key on the keyboard to the next adjacent key. This also works on the guitar or ukulele, going from one fret to the very next fret. Key 1 to key 2 is a half step since they are next to each other. A half step is not always from a white key to a black key. In this example, key 1 and key 2 are still next to each other. A whole step, or whole tone, or simply tone, is the same distance as 2 half steps. Key 1 to key 3 is a whole step. Key 1 to key 2 is the first half step. Key 2 to key 3 is the second half step, making up a whole step. An accidental is a sign used to raise or lower the pitch of a note. The first accidentals we will discuss are the flat and the sharp. The flat lowers a note by a half step and the sharp raises it by a half step. When typing, you can use the pound sign to represent a sharp and a lowercase b to represent a flat. If you call that a hashtag, I will have a brain aneurysm. Let's examine the black key in between the note C and D. This could be called C sharp, since it is a half step above C. It could also be called D flat, because it is a half step below D. Another example would be E and F. E could also be called F flat, since it is a half step below F. Likewise, F could be called E sharp, because it's a half step above E. Whenever a certain pitch has multiple names, this is called an enharmonic spelling, 2 names for the same note. Next, let's discuss the double flat and the double sharp. While flats and sharps alter a note by a half step, the double flat and the double sharp alter the note by a whole step, 2 half steps. When typing, you can use an X to represent a double sharp and 2 lowercase b's to represent a double flat. For example, the note D and E double flat have the same pitch, since you can reach D by going a whole step down or 2 half steps from E. D also sounds the same as C double sharp, since it's a whole step or 2 half steps above the note C. Finally, a natural cancels out any accidental and returns the note to its original white key. We will learn more about naturals in an upcoming lesson. Alright, that was the basics. Thanks for sticking around with me, and look forward to the next segment, which will be rhythm and meter. It looks pretty short.